there, Red Devil Nation. Welcome back for another Alumni Spotlight. We are honored today to have Joe Maloney, alum of Dickinson football. Joe, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Justin. Really excited to participate in this.
So as we dive in, first just tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you really got into playing football.
Sure. Grew up in Western Massachusetts, a town called Holyoke, about 90 miles west of Boston, and did not grow up with, around youth football per se, but I think like a lot of small towns and cities, throughout the country, Friday nights in the fall were spent, with the community coming together to watch the local high school football team play. So I have a lot of fond memories of making trouble, underneath the bleachers and watching a little bit of a football game while my parents were in the stands and other community members were in the stands watching the high school team play. And, I think that probably planted the seeds as far as my love for football. Growing up in the 80s and early 90s, cheering for the Patriots was not as popular then as it is today. So, I really give credit for, sort of romanticizing the idea of playing football to that local community, and started playing football in the 8th grade and was a soccer player as far as fall sports are concerned up until that point. And then just decided to take the jump. I think soccer was kind of passing me by as I began to get taller and taller, wasn't as quick-footed, and saw a lot of my peers sort of transcend me in the sport. And I felt like football would have been athletically probably better suited to my skills. And yeah, that's where it all began for me.
Mhm. And what do you think about it? What do you think about football attracted you to it? You said soccer started to pass you by and you jumped in 8th grade. And what really attracted you to the sport, and what did you love about being on that field?
That's a great question. And I think about it a lot because really what I feel like football instilled in me, as I was continued to play it through high school and college, was that notion of team. And I really learned very quickly, even as a young sort of JV football player. My first position was tight end. And I always felt like I wanted the ball. Like I felt like a tight end just should have been mostly a receiver. And I sort of quickly learned that I had to block, and I had to work every single down, just whether or not I was running a route and the ball was coming to me. And yeah, so it was that team mentality. And I had great coaches in high school at all levels. I think that really, really pronounced that point, that everyone on a football field has got to do their job. There's literally no playoff when you are a football player on a football field. And you can't say that for all team sports. In soccer, you can be a defender and the ball is down by the net and you can sort of catch your breath. In basketball, you can sort of be out of the play and decoyed and catch your breath. But in football, it's just not the case. Whether you're a receiver on the other side of the field, you got to block downfield. Obviously, the down linemen have to constantly work. The quarterback's always thinking. So really, that's what attracted me. I think at the end of the day, it was just this opportunity to wow, I can really grow as a teammate and really be a part of something special.
And as you went into the high school level, what made you want to continue playing football into your collegiate career, and how did you get into your college search?
So I was really fortunate to be the youngest of three, and I had an older sister and an older brother who played competitive sports all through high school. And so I grew up just constantly going to their games. I was an accessory to their activities until I was old enough to obviously have my own sort of set of activities. But they were good at their sports. They were really passionate about playing. And I think I sort of inherited some of that competitive nature from them and wanting to be as successful as they were on the field. And then my brother, actually, who I give a ton of credit for, so he ended up going to Dickinson and playing lacrosse. And so I saw the experience that he was having playing lacrosse at Dickinson and in a Division III college setting, which to me probably was a good match for me and a good fit. And it just felt like, why not? And it's an opportunity to continue to play a game that you love and to continue to grow, not only just as far as, playing, but and grow as an athlete and as a player, but, grow emotionally and continue to gain those skills. So like I said, I think my brother really paved the way. And again, having the ability to watch him as a college athlete. And that was my first exposure to the Centennial Conference and, mid-Atlantic schools. And I think for me, that was really important to see because I was at a private school in New England where, a lot of you're sort of like pushed to kind of go to certain schools in New England. And I really knew I wanted to get out of New England. There were basically the conditions were, long enough to sort of like get out of New England, but be within driving distance and not require a plane to sort of
Yeah.
travel to school. And obviously, as far as football is concerned, Division III was absolutely the right fit. I wasn't going to be, an opportunity for me beyond that. So that was really how it began. And again, having my brother at Dickinson, it sort of exposed me to the Centennial Conference. And so my college search was really confined to, a few of the NESCAC schools in New England, but, really to the Centennial Conference. And so I looked, really closely at Hopkins, Gettysburg, Franklin and Marshall, Dickinson was pretty much, sort of like the main four I remember looking at.
And at the end of the day, what attracted you to Coach Bro, Coach Quattrone, and the Dickinson football program and the college as a whole?
I was not intensely recruited. There was not a recruiting war between, Coach Gilberg at F&M or Coach Streeter and Coach Bro. It was more of I would go visit these schools and I would stop by the football office. I think the familiarity with Dickinson was really important. Obviously, just seeing the experience that my brother had and seeing how, the athletic department sort of and what he was able to experience as a lacrosse player was impactful, right? And it quickly became clear that all of the other schools were going to have a really hard time competing with Dickinson, simply because of the fact that there was some familiarity there. But I also don't want to minimize what I felt like was a real connection that Coach Bro and I actually had during the recruiting process. And so the quick story is I remember doing an overnight at Franklin and Marshall at some point in the spring of my junior year, and just like really wanting to just get out of there as fast as possible the next day, where I took a bus. I put myself on a bus. There wasn't Uber back then. So I put myself on a bus from Lancaster to Carlisle. I still don't really know how I did that. And so I get to Carlisle. My brother like picks me up at some bus stop. I don't remember where. And at that point, I had an opportunity to then go down and meet Coach Bro. And he just took the time to take me down to the field house, walk me around Biddle, got to see the weight room. We walked around the field. He just talked to me about how important the program is to him and how much the players mean to him, how much the coaching staff means to him. I felt like he was building a culture that was supporting everybody, from the freshmen to the seniors, from the best players on the field to the scout team players. And I just felt like it was somebody that truly built a community of support that was going to prepare the student athletes for their next step. And, we didn't talk about X's and O's, and we didn't talk about, what position I might play or how I could potentially contribute. He wanted to know what I was interested in, why I wanted to play football, and how Dickinson could help me sort of realize what I wanted to do after Dickinson. And I've always respected that about Coach Bro. He treated me like a human, not as someone that was going to fit into some scheme, some offensive scheme or some defensive scheme. And I just really appreciated that. And from that point forward, we kept in touch throughout my senior year and sent him some tape. And, from there, it really took off. And, I consider Coach Bro one of the most meaningful sort of mentors and advisors to this day that I've had the opportunity to have.
And what was your experience wearing the Dickinson uniform, and what were the lessons that you took away from the field, from Coach Bro, from Coach Quattrone, Coach Ryder, and all these great men who have come before you and your teammates?
Yep. I'll say I spent a lot of time on the scout team preparing the first team defense. So sometimes I joke that Coach Quattrone was really my main coach, because he saw more of me in practice than Coach Bro. And for everyone, I was a wide receiver. So I was spending a lot of time on scout team, which, I really wear proudly, because it goes back to what I said earlier. Everyone was treated the same, and my contribution on scout team was just as valued as, my peers that were on first team O. And I really mean that. There was no minimizing of anyone's role on the team, and I truly believe it starts with the coaching staff. they wanted good reps for their first team, and they relied on the scout team to come prepared. They treated one another with respect. They empowered one another. Coaching football is really, really hard. It takes you away from your family at a time in your life where you probably want to spend more time with your kids. For the coaches like Coach Ryder that had full-time jobs in other parts around the county or around central Pennsylvania, to take the time and to invest in us is really meaningful. Coach Gamble, all of the people connected to this program all wanted the best for the student athlete. And what I took away from that, Justin, to answer your question, is, again, one, it's community. It's honoring the legacy of those that wore the uniform before you and the culture that they helped create alongside Coach Quattrone and Coach Bro and others. Mm-hmm. And that you're a part of something bigger. And you don't realize that at the moment, because I think this notion of community can mean different things to different people. But one, it's a place where you come and you are supported and everyone is invested in your success. And I think that is a sort of a value as far as culture within an organization that I try to then mimic and then take to everything that I've tried to do in my career, which is treat people with respect. You can always learn from somebody. You can always get better, and you can always work, across all kinds of different, you can work across all kinds of different sort of silos and departments and everything to sort of create that culture. Okay. Because on a football team, if the offense and the defense don't believe in one another, as Justin, you've been on teams, like it might break down, it might not work, and it could become toxic. And, we're fortunate to be a part of Dickinson football because, again, it was established a long time ago, and it remains to this day. It's just a meaningful institution that continues to serve you well, far beyond the football field.
And speaking of your career, you've had success in your career. You just were appointed to a huge position with the Washington football team. Talk about the lessons that you learned at Dickinson, both in the classroom, but also you said from your teammates, from your coaches, that have really impacted you in your rise up the chain.
Thank you, and I think a lot of my success, is in no small part to Dickinson. To be quite honest, one, I'm a big believer in a liberal arts education. I truly believe it grounded me at an important time in my life, and I think set me forward in a really meaningful way. I say this a lot, and people I've worked with are probably sick of me sort of saying it, but I think what Dickinson sparked in me was a real intellectual curiosity that I think only sort of comes from a liberal arts education. And at the time when you're, participating in, a broad-based curriculum at a school like Dickinson, you might say to yourself, well, why do I have to do this core credit here? Why do I have to do a philosophy or a religion credit? Well, what Dickinson is trying to do is force you to engage a little bit, to sort of spark that curiosity, to sort of expand your horizons and stretch you a little bit, because it may turn out that you might find that class interesting, or, the foreign language requirement, will enable you to learn about a new culture and learn about an entirely new, set of skills that you might not knew that you even had. And I think that has served me tremendously well in a couple of different ways. I mean, one, I continue to sort of challenge myself to learn new things from everybody, and in the organizations that I've been a part of, particularly over the last couple of years, with the consulting firm that I was a partner in, to the Washington football team right now, my mentality is, forget about hierarchical structures. I can learn as much from the 24-year-old coming in as I could from, the 50 or 60-year-old colleague, and that just comes from this notion of, I think a liberal arts background really teaches you that, which is you can always continue to grow. You can always continue to challenge yourself. So that's one. And I think Dickinson does an amazing job doing that. The second piece, again, football is a huge part of it. Okay. And I think Coach Bro and Coach Quattrone, Coach Ryder, coaching the receivers when I was there, it was a growth mindset. It was always a growth mindset. Like in football, if you're not getting better, you're not remaining competitive. Every day is an opportunity to get better. And so that growth mindset I've taken with me in my career. If at any point in time, if I have a free minute, it's usually spent trying to determine, what I can be doing next for a client, or what I can be doing next right now for the Washington football team, and how I can continue to push us to sort of realize our goals. And I just think that's so important. And I talk to my own kids about that. It's, today is an opportunity to get better, right? And that's a growth mindset. And I think when you're playing football at Dickinson College, you're learning that from the very beginning, and I'd like to think it's exclusive to Dickinson. It may or may not be, but that's all I know. And every day, I mean, it was hard some days, Justin. I mean, you remember, like,
Mhm.
those Tuesday practices and week 8, and you got the pads on for the first time all week, and you strap it in and you jump over the rope and you're walking to the field and you're like, oh boy, here it comes. But you snap out of it, right? Like, you're like, okay, it's time to lock in and it's time to get better. And again, those are lessons I continue to bring with me in my career today.
You also, you're involved with the Alumni Network here for Coach Fordyce, giving back to this generation of football players. What's the biggest message that you impress upon these young men now that has carried you through your career, carried you through your time wearing the red, that you want them to know and want them to always remember?
I've really enjoyed the opportunity to stay engaged, and Coach Bro and Coach Quattrone did a great job making alumni available to us in the past, and I can't say enough about Coach Fordyce and what I would almost call like a real vertical he's building within the program right now in alumni engagement, inviting us to congregate and meet current players. And when I've had the opportunity to participate in networking sessions over the last year with current players, I really do try to get them to think about how they can step into roles after Dickinson and add value. I think that's the biggest thing. If you ask them, the story I say to them is, if Coach Fordyce sat you down and said, how are you going to help this team? Every single one of those players would have an answer to that question. So when they walk into the first steps of their career, they're going to be asked in interviews. They're going to be asked at an early age once they come out, hey, how are you going to add value to my organization? You got to be ready to lean in right then and there and really answer that question confidently. And so what does that require? It requires you to really think about your own skill sets critically. Think about what your own strengths and weaknesses are, addressing those weaknesses as you go into job interviews or as you grow throughout your career. And so I talk with these Dickinsons, with the current set of players, to get them thinking about how to communicate about their value that they can provide to organizations as they come out of Dickinson. And it's never too early to begin to think about that. Whether you're applying for an internship, for the summer after your sophomore year or junior year, now begin the process now of, determining what value you can provide or what value you want to provide and what it's going to take you to get there. So is it an internship, is it a part-time internship while you're during the calendar year, during the academic calendar year? Is it a full-time internship over the summer? Is it just something that you can do in your free time, right? I mean, we have access to a ton of tools that we can take advantage of. I know current students have the Career Center with Dickinson that I've participated in activities with as an alumni. I would encourage students to go there, work on your resume writing, practice. I talk to current students a lot about practicing, stand in front of a mirror or have a sibling or a parent, ask you some tough interview questions and put in the time, because you don't, again, like it would be like showing up and playing, Gettysburg without any practice, when the lights are on. You don't want to do that. So I talk to the current students about a lot of that stuff. And I've loved the engagement with the current players. And again, I really thank Coach Fordyce and even it starts at the top too, right? With Coach Quattrone running the athletic department and ensuring that we've got a community that's going to support one another across all sports.
And you've touched on this a lot in a lot of your answers. And I think it's a really important aspect too of not just Dickinson football, but Dickinson athletics in general, is the relationships that you build here. And when you talk to the generation of football players here now, when you and your friends talk about your time together, what's the most important thing that you guys cultivated in your relationships during your time here, and why have those been so transcendent throughout the years?
Yeah, I don't have a good answer to that, because it's really just a feeling, Justin, and the best way I can describe it is, I had four teammates, participate in my wedding. I have been a part of a number of teammates' weddings. I attend birthday parties of the children of teammates here in the DC area. Again, what Coach Quattrone and Coach Bro and Coach Miller and Coach Ryder, what they were able to create, connecting the generations of Dickinson football players, I just think it reminded everybody that you're part of something bigger, and that what you're doing is really special, both on the field and off the field. And again, it truly is such a fantastic community. I also I like to proudly say, the color commentator for Dickinson men's and women's basketball on campus radio. And it was just a fun opportunity to support my friends playing basketball. I love basketball, but I also just love rooting on my teammates as a color commentator for was it WDCV? I can't remember the
WDCV.
Yeah, WDCV. So, and to have the opportunity to work with people like Dr. Tracy, who, again, I continue to communicate with to this day, who was our campus radio advisor and an advisor to the football team. And I just think that all of those opportunities just created just so much community, right? And I'll tell you what, a quick story that I'll share with you. My brother-in-law, my sister's husband, he played, he's a 4-year starter at a high-level Division III school. I think he lost like maybe 4, 5, 6 games in all 4 years as a player. And on my wedding day, when he saw all of my teammates there, we did a big Dickinson photo at my wedding, and he just looked at me and he said, I don't have this with my school. I don't, you guys have something special here. And all along the way, I have one of my closest friends from Dickinson. He had 2 older brothers played college football, and they say the same thing about us. There's just something about Dickinson football and the Dickinson community where, we just stick together. And I'm so happy when I talk to the current players and I say to them, like, you have no idea the experience that you're having and how well it's going to serve you socially, emotionally, personally. It's just so fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And the last question for you here is, when you look back and you think about your time wearing the red, what gave you so much pride in putting on that uniform every day?
Just that I was, fulfilling and continuing a legacy that was truly something, above and beyond me, right? You're a part of something that's so much bigger, and your responsibility is to continue to represent it in as powerful a manner as those before you. So that's sportsmanship, that's competitiveness, that's work ethic. And you just don't get that many opportunities in life, Justin, at least from an athletic standpoint, and so, playing college sports is hard. There's so many competing priorities. But, what I say to a number of sort of current athletes that I've spoken to, particularly at the D3 level, where, there's a lot of distraction and there's a lot of competing priorities, you're going to test yourself playing this sport, whether it's football or tennis or anything. You're going to test yourself, but stick with it. Stick with it, because, the opportunity you have to be a part of something that's so much bigger than you don't have that many opportunities in life. And, when you look back on this time, you're going to say to yourself when you're 40, like me, sadly, 50, 60, you're going to say, you know what, I'm really proud that I stuck it out and I was there for my teammates. And I worked hard when it was tough, when it was really, really difficult. And, that's what wearing the red is. I truly believe that. That is what wearing the red is. It's competitiveness, it's sportsmanship, it's community. And most importantly, again, and what I learned from Coach Bro, it's supporting one another. It's just treating one another with respect and just being there for each other.
Well, Joe, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. This is going to be such a great story to share with the Dickinson community as a whole, and we wish you nothing but continued success with the Washington football team.
Thank you very much, Justin, and look forward to staying in touch and continuing to support the Dickinson athletics community again as they've supported me and so many others. And yes, if you come to Washington, please be in touch and hope you find it in your heart to support the Washington football team.
Absolutely, we will. I definitely will now that we have a Dickinson alum working for him.
Excellent.
Yep. Well, thank you. We look forward to seeing you back on campus soon, and we'll talk to you soon as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, Joe.